a meeting of the BOCC. If you want to join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Review of the minutes, Commissioner Mortensen.
Good morning, everyone. As usual, I reviewed the minutes of the activities last week and I move to approve those minutes.
We have a motion to approve. Any comments, corrections? See none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Consent agenda. I'll run down through the consent agenda. Under agreements, contract bid awards, items 1 through 5 are simply an updated interlocal agreement for law enforcement record services. For its after hour services, which we do with the county for the cities. And you'll see 5 new agreements with Castle Rock, Kalama, Woodland, Kelso, and Longview. Item number 6 is an agreement with the Cowlitz Indian Tribe for use of the law enforcement section of the gun range. Under letters, we have one from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission on a report related to a sinkhole issue up at Swift number 2. A letter dated to Darren Oswald from Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. They gave us well, I guess it was we sit in on a presentation. They have a project they call Hofstadt Hills up Spirit Lake Highway, and they're working with Weyerhaeuser to buy a piece of land, about 200 acres, it will give better access into their wildlife properties and stuff. And so it's they're working through the RCO for a grant on that, and we agreed to send them a letter of recommendation for their project. A letter to Greg Davison, congratulating him on his retirement, 29 years of service at the Sheriff's Department. Letter to James Jacobs, congratulating him on his retirement, 35 years in the Public Works Department. And a letter to Robert Bryan, probably butchered that, appointing him to Dyking District number 15. This appointment expires into December 2026. And under vouchers, we have voucher ratification for March 24 and April 24 Drainage Improvement District number 1, payment of expenses incurred, which amount to March 2959.67 and in April 2391.28. And that's the consent agenda. Questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve today's consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve today's consent agenda. Last chance, questions, comments?
Yeah, it seems, are we missing anything there? Just item 8 is the only thing? It seems sparse. I'm trying to see if we have any.
Usually we have a list of vouchers.
Yeah, and I'm looking to see.
Not every time. There has been other times when it hasn't listed.
I know through email, we've seen a little bit of activity, but
Yeah,
okay.
maybe next week's list is extra long. Any other questions? Okay, call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion items. It's all Public Works today. While they're getting seated, we do have, I will mention, we do have a public hearing at 9:45 today. So if we start running close to that, I'll just be cognizant of that. It's a public hearing at 9:45.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sean Rowe, Public Works. The first item for you today is we have a bid award to JL Stordahl and Sons for headquarters landfill transportation of rock materials through June 30th, 2025, for a cost not to exceed $314,753.25. This was a bid item. We had two bidders on this. We had a small difference between the two of a little bit less than $300. And so we'd like to award this to JL Stordahl.
And this is for maintaining the roads up and around the landfill as we work up in that area.
Yeah, it's for roads, both internal and external, as well as rock for when we install our gas wells and other items like that, 100%.
I take it that 25 cents is the result of the sales tax included?
Yes, sir.
Good.
No, they're just really picky about their bid.
Right down to the little,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the bid award to JL Stordahl and Sons as has been presented.
okay, we have a motion to approve item number 9. Any questions?
Actually, I'm curious, $300 is a very tight comparison or spread. Is that, does that tell us anything about this being a commodity item?
Yeah, so the difference, looking at the different bid items with on it, we had 7 different bid items. And most of the differences were plus or minus 50 cents by each item. And so,
Okay.
yeah, it was very
It's a
close.
And we hear from time to time trouble trying to get quarries to produce for what we need. Are we paying more this year than we paid last year or the year before?
On a per unit price, it is a little bit more than prior years. But we were excited to see a second bidder on this bid item.
Okay, thank you.
You probably usually only get Stordahl, is my guess.
We usually only have one on this, yes, sir.
Any other questions on this item? See none, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 10.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. Item 10 is the step to set up the project numbers so Public Works can start working on the project for the Delameter Road Culvert Replacement Projects. This project is funded by Protect, which is promoting resilience operations for transformative, effective, and cost savings transportation. This is a formula grant through WashDOT. In this project, we will be replacing 2 culverts on Delameter Road. These are large box culverts. They are both, let me check. I believe these are both 10-foot span in height, 10-foot span box culverts on Delameter Road. The area of Delameter Road is west of, they straddle McKee Road, for those of people who are familiar with out there. It is further west than Garlock Road for these 2 culverts. The $1 million we're requesting in the CRP is for engineering and right-of-way. And this is 100% reimbursable through the state. We're looking at $1 million for design and right-of-way, and the total project cost is about $6.8 million.
Susan, several years ago, we had a construction project on Delameter Road that kind of went south on us a little bit because of unanticipated costs, or that was that was their explanation. Is this work east of that location or farther
It's
west?
Farther west than
It
that
is farther
location.
west, okay. Thanks.
And just for the public to be sure, when you say the total cost is estimated, it should be the total cost of the design phase.
Is the $1 million,
Yeah.
yes,
And the total cost of the project is estimated at 6.8.
correct.
Any
Well-
other questions on it?
I beg your pardon?
See if you had any other questions.
Yeah, I was curious, but it looks like we may have the time. How big a span of road surface area does 6.8 million really buy us in this circumstance?
So it's a 22-foot road, 22-foot wide roadway currently. And my guess, when these are redesigned, they will increase to a 20-foot span. So there would be a 20-foot wide opening with a 22-foot wide roadway on top. That we will decide what type of structure we're going to be put in, because about 20 feet is where you start looking at, do you want to do a bottomless box, or do you want to do a bridge, a small bridge? Anything that's 20 feet or longer is considered a bridge, whether it's an open bottom structure or it's a traditional bridge.
So at the moment, the 6.8 million estimate is just an estimate. Engineering may come back and indicate just cost more, cost less.
Correct.
Okay. What's the answer to the question I always ask?
Will we widen it out? Yes, because when we do the final roadway width, it will be, the bridge section will be the standard width for a road of Delameter's classification. So that does include the 6-foot wide shoulders in this location.
Thank you.
So I'm a little curious, the estimate, the total estimate for the project seems a little bit richer than we're used to. I'm at least in my mind, when we open up a stream for removing a fish barrier like this, we 2.5 million or so, because you have to reconstruct the riverbed according to the
Mhm.
specs and everything. What's grander about these two culverts?
This Delameter Creek in this area is quite a large creek with a good drainage. So we're anticipating potentially larger structures at these locations when we did the preliminary layout. That is why these are higher. We're looking at Eric, excuse me, for comparison right now, Eric Creek, which we're replacing. That structure, I believe, is a 14-foot span, much lower height than these two structures will be in the end. And that is a $900,000 construction project. So 6.8 to, so that's two culverts, so 3.4. You've got 500,000 in engineering, so that gets at about a $3 million construction project per structure. Quick thumbnails, guess based on their size on other locations, and we base their size. There's a program that you can go online and pick where your crossing is, and it'll give you a drainage area and a rough what span your culvert is going to be, or a bridge, and then we base an estimate on what we've seen in those locations. And we do have, when we wrote these grants, our environmental consultants went out and reviewed the sites to see if, because a lot of our culverts are choke points, so that they're narrower than the actual stream bed above and downstream. So that's part of these projects. They make the low flow channel plus enough to pass the high flow. So that's why when I say we're going from a 10-foot span, we're going to be over 20 feet. It sounds like a lot, but that is why we get into these structures.
You mentioned this is a state-funded program, or is it federal money coming to us through the state?
It's federal money coming through the state. This is part of the ILJ program. That was a direct distribution to the state. There was an agreement with the state that they would do a certain percentage of this protect money, do it programmatic to the cities and the counties. It was a competitive grant application process. We went through last fall into this winter and were awarded these in, I believe, April or May, these projects. So we're moving forward with getting them on the books. They received, I'm trying to remember how many applications they received, but they funded all but 2 of the applications that they received. Ours were some of the higher ranked projects. I believe we were project 6 and project 9.
Well, I'll move that we approve the resolution to authorize the engineering and right-of-way acquisitions for the Delameter project, the Delameter Road Culvert Replacement Project, in order to replace 2 culverts.
Okay. We have a motion to approve item 10.
Yep.
Questions, comments? Yeah.
Good morning. Why did the culverts need to be replaced? Have they been damaged? Are they unsafe for the public to cross?
So currently, these are not damaged. They are reaching end of life. Were put in the 1940s, I believe. And so we're looking at ways to fund our older infrastructure replacement before it fails. This is not one that I am worried about at this point, but it will be in the next few years. So I'm trying to be proactive, find ways to fund our older infrastructure before it fails.
Thank you very much.
It's not uncommon. You do a list of things that we, a plan every year. And some of those can jump around and up and down depending on, because I know you have applications out for funding on different things. And if it comes in, then a project will move up or move down.
So if I understood what you said, this is gonna go from 10-foot wide to 20-foot wide for the water passage?
Yes, that's thumbnail rough guess. When we do the design, we'll finalize that.
Has the existing structure plugged up because it didn't have enough flow capacity?
So during high flows, it flows almost full and we have backwater. So it does not go over the road, but it remains behind it. And then the reason these are velocity blockages for the fish. This is one of the corridors that we've been working on, both with public roads and private roads for fish passage, which is why it scores well. And we do have to go and remove debris from it in the winter.
If it's a fish passage, I guess, and you go from 10 feet wide and it's got 3 inches of water in it, and now you go to 20 feet wide, it's only gonna have 1.5 inches of water flowing in it. You're gonna restrict the fish passage, aren't you?
So one of the things that you do during this design, and I can take you out to culverts and show you if you'd like to see. So you do open them up wider and then you create a low flow natural channel within it. That is the height that is preferred by fish. And so that channel is generally smaller than so in the 10-foot culvert, it'll be 6 feet. These numbers are all made up. Don't hold me
Okay.
to it. So that during the summer, when it's a lower flow, it just flows in that low channel that's a foot deep, let's say. And then as winter, fall storms come up, it'll stop lapping out and we have the capacity to pass the storm.
Okay, so, but are both of these structures gonna be basically similar in size when you're done?
Yes, because they are on the same stream, one's downstream of the other. The Delameter Creek flows parallel Delameter, crosses over Delameter, crosses back over Delameter. So yes, they will be similar in size when we're done, just like they are now.
I guess I'm wondering why you can't cut your design costs in half by designing one and just using the same prints for both of them instead of 2 separate designs. Anyway, thank you.
I think actually the chairman has a solution here. You stick a dynamite and you just make the creek go straight.
I've become very
Same side of
fond
the
of
road.
dynamite.
So now that you're putting this nice fish passageway in, you and I both know the rocks, the logs and everything float down. So now you have to increase your maintenance budget to go out and check every one of these every year to make sure that the fish passage is still the fish passage to every one of these bridges, tunnels.
So we check all of our bridges and culverts annually and during big storms currently. So it would be just a continuation of that effort.
But you've put a special design in there now for the trough down through the middle, through 20-foot wide. So I would foresee rocks and gravel and everything move through. So the fish passage itself will not be self-sustaining. You're going to have equipment in there regularly to clean these out to provide the fish passage.
So the way these are designed, the theory is the materials pass through and the same way a natural creek would function, because that is your goal, to have a creek bed simulated under the culvert or bridge.
Good luck. Yeah.
Good morning. I live out in the Delameter Drainage, an unnamed tributary of the Arkansas Creek. And I have offers of free federal money coming to me to replace an existing 5-foot culvert. That's exactly what you're talking about. And I can tell you that the stream size, when we have winter storms, the water coming through that 5-foot culvert is like a blowtorch. There's no way me or any fish could go against that flow. So I understand the difference in the flow rates, once you open them up. I wouldn't imagine any maintenance cost, once you get it opened up and it's a normal river, bed like normal. So, but yeah, I'll be going through this thing with you parallel because I got people offering me money to come and fix my culvert. So.
Hi, I just need to know, because of my experience that I've had, I've watched you put up not you, excuse me, I'm sorry, your department, a very nice bridge out at the end of PH 10, because there quote unquote was supposed to be salmon, and there hasn't been salmon there for decades. How many fish do we feel do use the Delameter Creek for spawning? Do we have fish that use that? Is that warranted to have that sort of upgrade? Because if we don't have fish, then perhaps our buildings could be less.
So the mapping that is provided by Fish and Wildlife, and it's called Salmonscape, and you can go on to Salmonscape on the internet, and you can go from creek to creek, and it shows you where they have documented fish, where they have potential fish, and it shows where all these fish passages occur. Delameter Creek, we have been working on removing as we've been moving upstream. So the goal is that as we're removing them downstream, they can get further and further up the creeks.
So right now you're telling me that maybe there isn't any viable egg laying by fish being done on that creek, but you're preparing it for there to be.
I am following up the creek, removing the fish passages as we're being required. And whenever I replace a culvert, whether there is documented, if they say it is potential, you have to meet the passage requirements.
Even though there isn't, there might be potential.
There might be potential. So the requirements are, I have to build it to fish passage because somebody downstream may remove it and then everything can come through.
I know I'm ultra stingy. I can't spend $1 unless it's really needed. But again, I have witnessed where there was a fantastic bridge put in, and for decades there have been no fish, and I doubt whether there will be. And I just don't want to waste state money on something that might not occur. We could build a nice little culvert thing for maybe not as much and keep your 10-foot, even though there is overage in the winter
The trouble is
times.
they won't let us do that.
They won't?
They won't.
Oh.
Why?
If we're gonna
They're
replace
saving-
this is how it has to be replaced. That's the
Really?
trouble flow. We don't have an option to
Really?
say we want something smaller. No, we don't.
That is outrageous. That's totally
It is.
outrageous. They make you spend this huge amount of money on a possible potential.
Mhm.
Possible potential.
You see the same thing at Rock Creek. That thing was plugged up from the mountain for 40 years.
40 years.
And
And
then
still,
when it came out, oh, well, before the mountain, this ran fish. So now you have to build it for fish.
oh, that bothers me because it's my money. Just like
Well,
the
they
permit
should.
thingy. I'm
They
sorry.
should.
I spent $20,000 on permits to spell 2 acres. And
It's
so
a
I've
little
done it, so
more-
I'm still mad. But anyways, okay, I
little
didn't
more-
realize we were made to do that. And we had to do that.
Yeah.
I apologize. I didn't know that you had to do it
Yeah.
at that extent. Excuse me.
It's a little more complicated than that, in that the laws come down presumably for the benefit of the public, but no real holistic cost analysis ever is
Yeah.
done there. And in your particular situation, I don't know what might be downstream of the culvert, say, that is preventing it from being passage. And then in all of this, there are probably thousands of locations that might qualify. We don't really have a very good handle on prioritizing. You do the best you can to figure out which one would you think will give the most impact. And then biological things are rather strange, that sometimes you get blooms and sometimes you don't. And fish may not be someplace for 4 years, and then the next year they have an awakening. We just don't have any control over the fish. We have as much control over them as we do over the legislature.
Good morning, Commissioners. The interesting thing about this to me is that we as human beings really have a tendency not to give Mother Nature any credit. I've been standing on the riverbanks and seen 20-pound salmon swim 150 yards up 3 inches of water. And I understand that we can't do anything about it, but I think there's an aspect of human nature that makes us feel good when we proclaim to be being good stewards of nature, when in reality, Mother Nature is very resilient, very strong. And I'm not saying we're not to be good stewards of the earth. We absolutely are. We have a responsibility to do that. But I don't know that it's as fickle and weak as we portray it. Oftentimes, I think it's used as a manipulation to push an agenda. We've seen movies where there's water that's backed up over a culvert and there's salmon swimming across the road in less than 2 inches of water. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be doing things to be good stewards, but I also feel that a lot of this is more agenda driven than anything. But Susan, you may have said this already and I missed it, but previously we were talking about a culvert that was being built, I believe it was on the Tootle, to open up 13 miles of river. And we were talking about that was a fish recovery. And that grant was written specifically for that purpose, to receive those funds. Was that correct? You know what I'm talking about? If we wrote the word fish recovery in there, it qualified for certain funds.
Yes.
Is the money coming from these funds the same, coming from that same source because we wrote fish recovery on it?
Yes, because this funding source was directed towards fish recovery of, so removing fish blockages in the public-built transportation network.
So am I to understand that anytime we do anything on a river, if we add fish recovery, those funds will be available to us? And are those funds separate than just saying, we just want to replace this stretch of the road?
Yes, so there's lots of pots of money out there for transportation. So there's fish money, which generally, there's 2 different sources. There's federal fish money, there's state fish money. So state is Brian Abbott Fish Berry Removal Board. The state currently, the federal money is this Protect money, and there's a culvert AOP pot that comes from federal highways directly. So that's fish money. Then there's crab money. Crab is the County Road Administration Board. That money is for road projects. It can include removal of drainage structures, but they don't have to be fish. That is purely transportation system money that can go to your arterials and collectors. Back to the federal pots for the roads, there's STP, BG, those aren't the right letters. So there's block grant funds. So there's block grants funds for roadways, there's block grant funds for intersections, and there's a whole pot of money for bridges. Bridges specific, and that is to bridges, the structural, not fish passage. But if you touch those bridges, they have to meet fish passage when you're done. Same with any drainage project you do with state money, crab money. There's also a couple different safety pots of money out there, and we've used those to correct some intersections and for guardrails and delineators. So there's lots of different pots of money. But if you're doing a road project, so like we have the South Cloverdale Road project coming up. As part of that project, we're replacing multiple culverts. Those culverts have to be brought up with fish passage money. And so we're using our state crab money, that's a road project money, and the STP, the state block grant, that's for roadway improvements. And that is going towards culvert replacement, even though there are no fish in those rivers, but they have, in those streams, one's Schoolhouse and one's an unnamed tributary. They had to be brought up to fish passage standards.
Okay, so yeah, so that's my question. So whenever we're doing road projects that involve replacement of culverts, do we always apply for that grant through the fish recovery, for the fish recovery grant, or does it make, are there different strings attached if we request money from different sources, I guess is what I'm saying?
Yes, there are different strings for different sources. Federal projects have their whole package of strings, Buy American, so it's called BABA, Buy American, Build America. There's Davis-Bacon, so that you'd have different wage rates. You have that Buy American, you have certain apprenticeship training hours that you have to do, minority business owner restrictions. And then in general, on all of these grants, you have to maintain that facility for 20 to 100 years. So that is a standard string on all of our projects. The state fish money is, you just have to build it to a fish passage, and Brian Abbott puts it on their website. They look at it, you put a little sign. So there's little salmon signs by these bridges. And the safety is just all those federal ties. The crab money has the least amount of ties because it's County Road Administrative Board, and it's mainly that maintenance and designing it to yours and WashDOT standards.
So when we go looking for these funds, do we evaluate all the strings attached?
We're
to each one of
starting
them?
to get off of this particular project and get into a general discussion, and I'm good with that, but just, I'm not sure this is the point for that. If you want to have a big general discussion, we can do that in public comments, but if it's related to this project, I'll let you go on, but we're starting to move off on this.
Well, I think it's related to the project, because I was just wondering if we go through all the funding sources to determine if we have utilized the
Maybe
best
we could
funding
do a
source.
workshop and you could talk about all the funding. We did the fish workshop and you could discover all that, because there's a lot of moving pieces that they work with. And
a lot of this comes in my 6-year plan development, which I'm just starting for the 25 to 2030 year, which is part of our budget project. And that 6-year plan and all of the pieces and parts that go with it is brought to the board and reviewed. So.
Okay, thank you.
You'll be around after we get everything, so you can
Yes.
answer more questions in the
Okay.
open session.
we got public hearing at 9:45 and I will stop.
Okay,
it.
right quick, is I'm sitting here, all of a sudden I'm remembering some of my statistics about a job I used to do. If you double a pipe from 1 inch to 2 inch, you don't double the flow, you actually quadruple it. So if you're doubling the size of this, are you quadrupling the flow capacity? And if so, why so much? Because if you're saying it's right now, it's coming up full at the 10-foot size, Why wouldn't you just increase it to 15 foot instead of 20 foot?
It is all based on the design criteria and velocity. Velocity is a controlling factor in the fish passage design.
You're also
Okay.
assuming, that the pipe is totally full. And that may not be, that's probably not the case.
No, I'm not assuming anything. I'm saying
No,
that the
you are
capacity quadruples.
You are when you, well, the capacity does quadruple, but that doesn't mean that, that the flow in there is going to be used. But
Exactly.
But one of the other things is, we always talk about culvert replacement, and the image in people's mind is another pipe. Only with its barriers, it's not another pipe. It's going to be an open bottom box.
Right.
So
I understand that.
different dynamics on that.
Any other questions on item 10?
we have a motion on the floor.
We do have a motion on the floor. Okay,
Yep.
sorry. Then I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Item 11.
So item 11 is an additional resolution to establish the project for engineering and right-of-way acquisition for the Gilmore Road Studebaker Creek Replacement Project. The total design and right-of-way estimate is $600,000, and the project is a $3.5 million project. The existing culvert is an 8-foot span box. This is one that we have noticed we are starting to get some deterioration in the box and would like to get it done prior to a failure.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the resolution to authorize the engineering and ROW acquisition for the Gilmore Road Studebaker Creek Culvert Replacement Project as has been presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 11, the Gilmore Road, Studebaker Road. Questions, concerns, comments? Not seeing any. Call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got a couple minutes. Let's see, this Wednesday at 2:30, the workshop is an ADA transition plan. I'm not sure I can explain everything on that one. Next Wednesday, Habitat for Humanity will be in on the 17th. And the next item I see is actually August 21st. We'll have Community Mediation Center.
So, Mr. Chairman, on the Habitat for Humanity, that presentation in preparation for a request for funding for affordable housing assistance?
I think we've asked them in the past, we've been open to giving them, to looking at that, and they've never had a specific request, so it wouldn't, I would assume that.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I'll fill a little time with just a comment on the previous discussion,
Sure.
which is, let's not forget that there's a high level understanding here that goes on. All the things we're talking about, this pot of money and that pot of money, it's all taxpayer funding. So at some point, money is fungible, and so it really becomes just a game that we do play in terms of trying to see which grant we fit the most, we are most likely to fit and be successful. But I want the public to understand that, let's say there's a pool of money, just for argument's sake, $100. And we then want to, as bureaucrats, we say $100, we really could spend $200. But, you know, the public isn't going to swallow us growing this pot from $100 to $200. Why don't we split it up? This pot of $100 is for projects that are into fish recovery. Now, this one over here is for public safety. So now we can do 2 pots, each pot being of $100. And then you can notice as our county engineer spoke, there were pot upon pot upon pot, various distinctions. That's how we end up with a taxation on the public that is just humongous. When you add up all the taxes you pay, it's very gross. So that's how it happens.
We got a couple of minutes. I had a meeting yesterday and I might go over that because it's pertinent. Had a meeting yesterday with Army Corps of Engineers and Department of Ecology. Specific things, specifically around the Tootle Park erosion problem. Actually, 3 different things. Chapman Road, the old landfill out there, and also Cast Rock sewer discharge pipe. There's some issues there. So I met with them and I want to make a distinction that when I look at that system, there's 2 different things to look at. It's what they call the SRS, the sediment retention system. That's all the upper, to me, that's the upper Tootle and stuff where they have the dams and that stuff. What I made clear to them is all that I'm really interested in talking about is where it comes down to lower Tootle and enters the Cowlitz and what effects it starts having with that. And you heard, if you listened in last week, you heard that we okayed efforts to, we had Conservation District look at the area and give us some, and he gave us, I don't know, maybe half a dozen different solutions or different things you could look at for doing that. But all of it would require some geotechnical assistance. So we gave authority to our public works to start looking for a geotechnical firm. Well, what I learned yesterday is Army Corps is willing to do that. I met with Valerie Ringgold. She's the chief of the planning and economics section for the Portland district. She basically runs that area. And then she did most of the talking, and Amy Gibbons, chief of the environmental resources branch for the Portland district. And they have a lot of resources available, and she's going to send me the documents to get started. She'll put it in a form letter and I'll just have to fill it out, and we can ask for assistance for geotechnical assistance. It won't come with a total design, but she said it'll come with a concept detailed enough that you can develop a design that's acceptable to them on it. And because we also live in a county that probably qualifies for low income economic, we always do in other areas, that their program used to always be cost share, but it's not necessarily that anymore. They will cover full costs on some things because of our county designation. She also wants to introduce me to a gentleman that when I started talking about the Chapman Road landfill, where we're worried about it exposing some of that landfill, that he actually worked another similar system to that and hardened it and did the work on it. And they do have funds available for that. So the bottom line is, and I committed that the commissioners, the county would work with them on this section, not the SRS, but the section down here, and that we are not afraid to have some, we've said we'll do some lifting on this up to our abilities. So she wanted to have a meeting and bring this other gentleman. She seemed pretty positive about it and meet with us. And I said, well, if you're going to meet with us, all 3 of us, it has to be in a workshop. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a workshop with Army Corps and ecology and have them in, and we'll just talk over some of those solutions. In between time, when she sends me, we'll try and get applications started for some geotechnical and for other assistance on that. So I thought it was worthwhile. And she quite frankly said she's excited to just work with the county. She said working through the collaborative is kind of tough at times because there's people in there with special interests and feel pretty strongly about it. And I said, I'm not looking to point fingers. I'm just looking to find something that will help, that's within your system and you're okay with. And so that's just kind of a short update of that meeting yesterday. I thought it was worthwhile doing.
Well, you have my compliments. That sounds like the most progress I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, well, we've been at it a long time and nothing's happened. So if we can get something to happen, that's better. So we're gonna work that path. Okay, we're about 9:45. You guys want to?
Morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. In front of you today, we've requested a public hearing. We're looking to adopt a commercial property assessed clean energy and resiliency, otherwise known as the CPACER program, and add Chapter 1650 to the Cowlitz County Code, which would be the CPACER program code. So we've workshopped this. We've had a proponent from a developer from the Woodland area that is looked to have the county offer this program for development within the county. It's actually in the city limits of Woodland. However, if we offer this program countywide, anyone within the county that develops can use this. And this is it's privately owned, commercial, agricultural, industrial, multifamily housing, 5+ units or more, that may be owned by any type of business, corporation, individual, or nonprofit. And basically what this program is it's a lending program. The county is not the lender, but it's a program that if we offer, the developers can take advantage of and have lower interest rates and longer timelines to pay. So if we offer it, we're hoping to attract different businesses for Cowlitz County.
Not every county offers it.
We would
There's-
be the seventh
Seventh?
county. Mhm.
You know, this went through legal and most everything runs through legal, and Doug had some questions on it and
He
I
did.
reviewed some of that stuff, and we rely a lot. There's a MSRC,
Yes,
MRSC.
MRSC.
MRSC
Yeah.
that does pretty good work. And I know when this program first became available, they had some issues with it. They had about 9 different points they had issues with. And then they did another review of it. I think they suggested some fixes, and I think the legislature made some of that. And then another review they did in 2022 felt like they had fixed their concerns and thought it was a program that would have some value to some people. It's not heavily used. I think Clark County has had it for a while. They don't do a lot. It's really a program. If what you're doing kind of fits the parameters, they take advantage of it. If it doesn't, they do something else.
That's correct. Up north, they use it more in King County. Clark County has 2 applications and Thurston County has yet to receive one. So they offer it, they just haven't received an application yet.
And any work on our part, it starts with an application at the county, and we're allowed to recover the costs that were associated. So the county doesn't.
We're not out anything,
money.
no. Staff time and the fee pays for the staff time.
Can you give me an estimate on what the cost might be for a normal application?
Yeah, it's 1%. It's a $500 application fee upfront. And then the minimum is $2,500 and the maximum is $15,000. And it's 1% of the,
Of the final
value.
The
I'm sorry.
final project value?
yes,
You won't know that until,
when they apply. So the minimum will be 2,500 and the maximum would be 15,000,
okay.
depending on the scope and the magnitude of the project.
Yeah, for the public, we've discussed this
Yeah.
before
lot.
a number of times, and it's not an easy decision for any of us. Remember, just a few moments ago, I talked about the multiplying of the pots is easier than, multiplying the number of pots is easier than multiplying the pot itself, because that becomes really noticeable. And this strikes me as sort of the same thing. Now we've got another special category as opposed to having the private world just build whatever it needs to build and take its chances. It's going to want some upfront handout. To me, that's always a dangerous thing. But back to the costs, how did you estimate that?
It's what's allowed in the RCW.
So you're going for the maximum allowed in the RCW?
I'm actually just mimicking, copying exactly what the RCW allows. It's whatever the project cost is what the fee would be.
Okay, thank you.
We're just staying the same as every other jurisdiction that's adopted this program.
So Tracy, you know that I have this thing about acronyms. And the acronym that is printed out here is CPACER. That doesn't mean anything to me. Tell me a little bit about what they're referring to when they talk about an assessed clean energy and resiliency program.
Of course. So it's, they're qualified improvements that the developer would do to a building to make them more energy effective, efficient. Some things that they could do would be HVAC systems. They could replace different lighting fixtures, some different types of building installation upgrades. For renewable energy, some of the examples are solar panels, or geothermal heating systems. They could do water conservation, replace lead water pipes with low flow fixtures, or repair leaking systems. Water smart landscaping, sprinkler and irrigation systems, seismic retrofits. There's many different kind of categories, and it's between the
Share
developer.
with me what can't be done anymore if you apply for this program. I mean, you use the phrase clean energy. That means different things to different people.
Right.
Is this designed to say no to any particular source of energy?
No.
So you can continue with natural gas appliances?
Yes.
But this is like a cap and trade, isn't it? If you
Yes.
choose natural gas, you've got to do something else somewhere else.
Correct.
So it's,
it'd be,
Mike kind of explained that
yes,
yesterday. It
we had
doesn't,
a really good discussion yesterday on it.
doesn't
He is here if you want him to
preclude-
come back up.
yeah, it doesn't preclude natural gas, but you make.
You can do this and offset it with that, yes.
offset it in another part of the building or idle.
Correct.
it's like cap and trade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it's just important, I think, for people here to understand that there is there's a process and a program. And the emphasis is trying to steer you towards certain types of energy.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions from up here? Open the public comment.
There's a big question, and this is, I live in a world of basics.
Excuse me. When you move that microphone away, it's a little bit difficult for us to hear you when you look at her. So
Oh, okay,
So-
sorry.
just be careful.
Try
I'll
and
go
twist
closer.
the neck so you're speaking into it, not
Okay.
aside it.
Okay, sorry. I live in a world of reality. Okay, this program sounds really great for getting things cleaned up. However, in my eyes, because I am, again, a very stingy person, very tight, I count every penny. What I see with this program is the fact that even though it sounds good, we don't have the staff to implement it because you have to take and go and audit those changes, okay? Also, it's going, I believe, to put the permit, and that's a big no-no thing for me
Mhm.
right now, as everybody's heard.
Mhm.
Prices higher than they already are because you have to cover the staff to do all of these things that this little project is going to incur. Therefore, I think we can't afford it. Because right now, the average person, and I'm sorry about the low income,
Mhm.
I'm sorry about the
Mhm.
industrial people,
Mhm.
but the average person cannot afford to pay the permits involved with selling a house or land because they're so high. And I'm sorry to keep on pounding on the
Mhm.
same door. But as I've told everybody here many, many times, I was not just astounded that I had to pay that much in price to sell the land that I'm selling. Horrified. And then I started thinking about other people who are trying to do the same as I. They're trying to sell either house or land, and they're trying to do things that require permits. The first thing you have, I acknowledge it, it does take a bit of time to take and enter the data and record it. But I also have worked in offices all my life, and entering data is not that hard and not that long. And publishing it would not take that long. So my last step on my property is $3,000 to end it, to finish it off after the survey has finished his, John. And I'm thinking it's going to cost $3,000 to enter that data and record it. And if it does, and if this project you're talking about goes through, that's going to take staff away from doing things like my project from other people as well. I'll be done, but you have other people that are trying to do the same as I am. And you're not going to have the staff in order to do it. So you're going to have to take and raise the permit price because you've got to cover that.
No, so we've not raised our permitting fees in 4 years. We've actually reduced several fixed rates this last year. And this program falls on my lap because my staff has other things to do. So this program is going to be what I get to administer.
And no other staff.
Huh?
So you're
No,
going to go
I'm
and
not
monitor.
adding staff. I don't foresee this program being a huge
Okay.
program. Like I said, Clark County has had it for 6 or 7 years and they've had 2 applications. Thurston County has had it since 2020, 2021, and they have not had an application yet.
But,
So it's
I
just
mean,
a resource, and a lot of this work, if the board approves it today, the work that the developer wants to do is in the city limits of Woodland. And so it doesn't even affect, the permitting doesn't even affect my office. It actually will go through the city of Woodland and their jurisdiction.
and it will
but this-
affect them then.
I'm sorry?
Then it will affect them.
It's another permit in their door and a commercial permit in their door.
And
But the CPACER program will reside within Cowlitz County, the county in itself.
okay,
So
can-
I will do the paperwork and get everything taken care of on our end, but the permitting piece of this project that I believe is coming through the door will go to the city of Woodland.
Okay, and I appreciate that fact that
Mhm.
right now, this does affect just Woodland as far as staff can.
Right.
Well,
But
it's a-
eventually.
But it's
It's a
just,
permit, Woodland would, whether the entity used CPACER or not, Woodland still have a permit process.
yeah, the permit would still come
But
in the
this would be an
door.
additional,
Has nothing to do
but
with it.
this would be an additional permit. And what I'm saying.
No,
No, it's not.
it's an
just
additional,
application.
it's an
Okay.
additional program that the developer can use to get better financing. That's all it is.
Okay, I'm going to be a watchdog on
Mhm.
permits, and I'm sorry.
No, please do.
But I was
I welcome
horrified
it.
what I've had to go through. And I'm right now stopping, if I can,
Mhm.
any and all more money that has to be directed in that direction, only because I believe it's stopping the average person from being able to afford what we need to have done in Calais County, which is to build homes. And they're wanting to build homes. They just are overwhelmed by what they have to go through. And sorry, I don't mean to be on your
No,
case.
I hear you.
I really don't.
I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other?
Just to comment on the permitting, maybe the county's different, but if I change my electrical in my building, I have to have a permit to do that. If I change my HVAC, I have to have somebody to inspect that and approve that. So permitting certainly is part of any of these changes,
Right.
et cetera.
Yeah, the permitting's there. Whether they do it through this program or not, the permitting's still there. All the permitting stuff applies.
Can you share with us a little bit more about the project that's being proposed that's sort of
I can-
triggering?
Well,
triggering
I
that?
can pick on somebody in the audience if
Yeah,
you can. Dean,
I-
do you mind?
I would like to bring the
talking about
developer
your
forward.
project? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners. Tracy. So I'm Chairman of Kirkland Development. I built a project in Woodland in the county of Cowlitz. It's up and running now. We're just finishing paving, so it's been permitted. This will be a permanent loan like you get on a home or hotel or triplex or apartment. With the rates going from 5% to 10%, the program really allows you a cheaper bite at money. The program fits with the traditional lender, so it typically, if you used Red Canoe or Fiber or US Bank, they would do a portion of it and the PACE program would do a portion. The ironic thing about it is you can write your guidelines however you want. One of the questions is if certain jurisdictions want you to be more solar or more battery, you don't have to. You can say, I only want that program to have fossil fuel. So you can really dictate as a community what you want. And the other ironic part is the program, what we built was steel buildings. We didn't have to do anything out of the normal except follow the code. So it's the code that Cowlitz County has, or Kelso, or Longview, or Seattle. We are bound to that code. And if we don't follow it, we don't get a permit. So it's really a push for us. And typically the money today is Treasury +4. It's a great program for people to use. I've been a capitalist and a Republican for a long time. I don't like to talk politics in front of people, but the program is really helping where the inflation and the rates are up. And we used it down in Clark County. We think it'll do well. We think that people that want to come into the community and prosper and open a business, they can use it for that. So that's just a little bit about it. There's no catch to it. We didn't have to do anything more than follow the code that they make us. And if we don't follow the code, we don't get our permit. That's it.
So who underwrites the reduced interest rate?
So it's underwritten by different banks, or in this case, we're using a group called Peachtree. They're out of Atlanta. And we've done several deals with them. There's another group called Petros Pace, and I can give the list of, there's probably 20 different PACE lenders, but mostly traditional banks and lenders.
So let me ask it in a different way. If I can sell an item for $10, but now I have to sell to him for $8, where does the $2 go? But by analogy into here. In other words, the notion I have is there's a market rate out there, and I'll gladly discuss with you or agree with you that those market rates are rather ephemeral and already alloyed, so it's hard to understand them. But it is a market rate supposedly. Yep. And you're going to get a loan below market rate. So that difference is paid by somebody.
Yeah, I think the one thing you get is you get a little bit better leverage in the program. It's rate driven plus leverage. So think about it when you buy a house. Most people, if you're a first time home buyer, you got to put down 5%. But when you do these commercial buildings or light industrial, they want you to put down a quarter for every dollar. Most of the programs will allow you to go up to 80 or 85%. So maybe it's a lesser amount down, and it adds up. So that's the one thing that the program does, if that kind of helps you answer your question.
I would, I would think it's similar to like an SBA loan, a VA loan, where there's some.
Yep.
You can get a HUD loan, you can get below market rate and stuff. You're right, the money comes from somebody. It's not unusual that that's out there. In the mortgage industry, I've dealt with a few of those, but yeah.
Yeah.
I know where you're going, and yeah.
Yeah, it's
it
not
ends up out
subsidized by the
that.
government though. It's not. It's just direct from the banks.
Well, someone is not a bank. I've not known a bank that says, you know, we pay 5% interest on accounts, but because you're a nice guy, I'm going to give you 6.5%. I mean, banks don't do that. They're going to get, any business wants to get the maximum that the market will bear. And if they're precluded from doing that, then there may not be dollars out of your pocket immediately, but there's certainly an opportunity cost that is lost to Maybe the bank passbook holder.
Yeah, it could be. I wouldn't have knowledge of how they make their money internally.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct. This is what makes this thing very, very conflicting for me, because there are 1,000 different programs like this. You named 3, and I'm of course exaggerating. It's probably not 1,000, but it might surprise me how close it gets. We've had in the past massive disasters with the prime rate, or the what was it, back about 15 years ago, we just about collapsed the world with this. And I just don't have an appetite to add another one of 1,000. So you could argue that's a 0.1% addition to it. So why do I really care? And the answer is somewhere, somehow it has to stop before it all collapses. Maybe we just wait and jump on the bandwagon and then it collapses. I just don't know. That's why I'm conflicted.
Yeah, I think in your community, you'll see that people try to leverage the program and it'll spur business and growth. And for entrepreneurs that want to own their own business, own their own restaurant, own their own fiveplex, much like us, you're looking for the best opportunity, best cost of money.
Yep. I do not at all have negative feelings about you trying for this program.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of had this conversation yesterday, and it is conflicting, because I like, and I know Commissioner Morton thinks this way, would just soon government stay out of any business and just let business do their thing. But they involve in that. But I can't, if I had the political capital to fix it, I'd fix that. But on the other hand, I don't know that telling a person they can't take advantage of it is the right thing. So that causes me some internal stuff. I can't fix the state or the federal by denying a person using a project.
The only thing I'll rebut on that is we have to be very careful. A lot of people will come to us and want a lot of grants, particularly in the welfare area. They want this grant and that grant. And if we do not go along with them, they accuse us of taking away their opportunity. In this case, we're not standing in your way as best as I can see. You require us to do something to allow you to proceed along this path. So it's not like we're saying, no, you can't take that path. We're just not going to make the path for you. Anyhow. This, by the way, in my book is really the essence of what I would call friendly discussions. How it ends up, we'll take a vote when the public session is closed. And there isn't going to be any heartburn on my part, regardless how it goes.
Any other public comment? Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, commissioners.
Close public comment. I'd entertain a motion or whatever you want to do.
Well, I'll make the motion that we go ahead and approve the CPACER program as proposed by staff, and amend our code by adding a chapter 16 as recommended by staff.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any other comments?
One of the interesting things that happens when I meet with commissioners from across the state, they're oftentimes amazed that we haven't fallen under the growth management restrictions and rules and regulations that almost all the other counties have to follow. And I always tell them, I say, well, the idea for growth management is to manage growth. That assumes you have it. And I said, our county has grown at a very minuscule rate. We don't have the capital investments coming in. It seems to me this would be a tool to make it a little bit more attractive for investors to make the kinds of improvements that help our long-term growth. our entire tax structure without a state income tax depends upon constant growth. And so I look at it as a way of enhancing growth the right way and helping our finances in the future. So I don't mind. And it helps that it's not a grant request, to be sure.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly going to vote for this.
Yeah, I can comment.
Go ahead.
A little further. It's not going to change anything. It's for the public to realize when the government gets involved, even with the best of intentions, it's going to make this gentleman's job to build something awkward. We just heard from another constituent who was talking about $20,000 in fees and all that. Those are all things mandated by the government. So on the one hand, we're actually doing a lot of damage or constraint or control over the market. So we're going to try and fix that by offering inducements on the other side. That really reminds me of the Mad Magazine comic panel of spy versus spy, where in the end, we play a game. The spies play a game against each other. But who pays for all that? The public.
Yeah. That's yesterday, you heard me ask that I heard a presentation at the Woodland Council on the International Building Codes
Yeah.
and how that came about. And I said, I'd like to see that presentation because when you see that, you'll see how a lot of this nonsense, in my mind, came about. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, but that's just a side note. Yeah. Any other? Okay, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Opposed. Unhappily.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Public comment, if you have it? Okay. If not, remember tomorrow, we
might have
have,
somebody, we might have somebody coming up.
oh, Rob, okay, sorry, Rob.
Also, do we have an opportunity after that for a miscellaneous?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I drive by that, the new bridge that was built over the south portal of the railroad tunnel there at Rocky, what's that called? Rocky Point. And I noticed that
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I noticed that here back last winter, part of the guardrail had been taken out by, apparently somebody had an accident there and took out the guardrail, and it hadn't been fixed yet. But my question is, to repair that, is the county able to get the cost reimbursed from the individual's insurance company that caused that accident?
That's an interesting question, Rob. If we know who it is, you can get some reimbursement that. But I had, Public Works gave us a list of things that they write off money on that we don't ever collect the cost of us repairing back, and guardrails is the number one. So it's very hard to get, if we know who it is and they have insurance and everything, we can get some money. But that is raise your hand if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think I'm right on that's the number one, and it's number one by a big margin that we don't get reimbursed on.
So if we know who it is, we go after them. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is just a quick request. I talked to each one of you this morning and about the Green Hill Juvenile Center being closed. I would just really like to have you three think about an option for our county because I do know that the closure of that is going to affect us at one point in time. And I think we need to be prepared for when it does and what we're going to do and what we're going to do with the juveniles that will be coming this way, one form or another, and be prepared for it. So I just want to present this again to you and maybe make it an item for you guys to talk about because I foresee more and more violent behavior in our juveniles as time grows. My children are teachers, and it is frightening to hear how they have described the progression of each class that is coming through their classroom. Each class has become more antisocial, more mentally, emotionally unstable. I do know that they are teaching the SEL, and that I believe has really affected our children. They think in a correct way, in a brilliant way, in a great way, but I took psych in college, and I know it's a long time ago, but this has actually, I believe, hurt our children to the point where they don't know which way to go. They're having problems in school, they're problems with their families, of course. So we are going to see the result of that. We just need to be prepared for it. We really do. Thank you very much.
It may be useful, maybe Dennis could talk to us about the purpose of Green Hills and what's at stake here.
I'm not an expert in that area. What my understanding is Green Hill is a juvenile facility for those who are the most seriously affected, accused of the most serious types of crimes. So beyond what county youth services centers can handle. So that facility has been very visible to those who drive up and down I-5 because it's right at the freeway in Centralia. My understanding of the article was that it is horribly overcrowded, that I guess we shouldn't be surprised because they've done it for the adults. The facilities are filled to capacity. And the announcement that generated the article was the decision to suspend any future admissions indefinitely. So if you cut through the language, there will probably be a time when they can start readmitting folks. We certainly have to wait a lot longer than we used to get people into Western State Hospital, although it's not exactly a psychiatric facility, but it deals with pretty incorrigible kids. So we do have, interestingly, we do have access capacity in our youth services center. But, we have to find out from staff how they feel about accepting any additional folks, because I'm sure their training and preparation just isn't the same. And you don't want them, you wouldn't want them interacting with the kids that are staying with us for less serious.
My understanding of Green Hills is that a youth has to have been convicted 3 times of a serious crime or I'm
not sure about that.
Felony. We don't normally send anybody up to Green Hills. I haven't heard of you.
No, I think that's, and I don't know about the 3 times. I know I read an article, a kid that killed a parent over in Eastern Washington, and he was put in Green Hill because the story is about them visiting them. So I don't think it was a 3-strike thing, but they are the more serious offender adolescents. Yeah.
I think it may be 3 strikes of Class C, a
Maybe
single
so.
strike of Class A.
Yeah, could very well be.
But the point, it's the maximum security kind of place for
But
youth.
I think there is a concern that, how we house them in our county jail because there's no beds in Western State, right? And it's not far-fetched to see the state saying, well, we'll house these kids temporary until we get a room up here. So I think the comment is valid, that it may have some impact on Cowlitz County down here, and we probably should have that discussion. And
I think if not explicit, implicitly, we were asked, what can the county do about that? And I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. I mean, but I do agree it's probably something we should explore and not have to scramble if we don't have to. Okay. Did you have something on miscellaneous?
Yeah, I had a miscellaneous, which is actually probably pretty important there. I'm trying to look ahead to what we're going to do regarding the Board of Health and the interviewing of the new applicants. We have received, I think we'll have a total of maybe around eight applicants. And the questionnaire is a full questionnaire, and that's been answered. But then for the interview, it has to be done in the public eye. And yet, if you ask question of, if all the candidates are here, you will alloy the answers as you go down the list. So you answer first, next, and then you can create a better, more thoughtful answer as you have more time to prepare and as you hear other points being made. And so we could play the rotation game, but that assumes all questions are equal, and questions are going to be specific to the person's application, or at least on my part, the questions would be. Remember how we did the interview for the candidates to replace Joe Gardner? You know, the candidates were in the back room, and they came out here individually, and we did an interview that way, and that seemed okay. With about 8 candidates, you leave 15 minutes each, you're talking about 2 hours. The last person has to sit in there cooling their heels for 2 hours. That doesn't seem like a good thing. And then the additional complication is the advice of the Board of Health is the recommendation is going to be from the full current Board of Health panel. So the current Board of Health panel is comprised still of people that would normally be reappointed if they apply for a reappointment. So it's really bizarre that the group that decides the recommendation is going to vote on their own appointment. And that seems strange to me. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and how to handle that, because you're having the interviews, and we have at least 2 from the current Board of Health that would be on that side, not here on this side. Well, or you have one up here asking questions of somebody in another position. It's going to be kind of an odd thing.
Yeah, so
I
I'm
don't
just
know exactly how to
Yeah.
handle it.
Is it, we either go, I think the administrative code is a bit crazy here.
Yeah. If it allows, it probably may be something we do over 2 different weeks, or
Yeah.
Perhaps
so if
that's
it allows that.
that may be a David Berger question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked with him this morning some. He should be online now. And there are drawbacks to any of them, of course, because no doubt things will be printed in the paper. If, say, we interview somebody on Monday, then the response there, the publication may affect how a Tuesday response occurs or how we vote on a Tuesday. So
Yeah.
it's not like we have a jury that's sequestered. This is a jury that's going to vote also on their own conviction.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't think people that want to be reappointed should be the interviewers.
Yeah.
If they're over there, then they shouldn't be up here. I don't know about walking back and forth to different seats, but,
There's David.
There
but
he is.
David may have a different take on that.
Morning, gentlemen. Yeah, I agree. It's a weird situation, but the current members who are applying to be reappointed are entitled to be part of the interview process. Just because the language of the WACs and the RCWs say that the interview is conducted by the Board of Health, and those current members are still, they're holdover members based on the bylaws. So until they are either reappointed or someone else is elected to fill their position, they would be entitled to be a part of the process.
So
My
I
other,
guess we have to accept that.
right. And my other comment, I would say, or I think before I got on, Commissioner Mortensen was talking about possibly doing this on 2 separate days, given the amount of time it might take. I don't think there's a problem with that. I would say one of the rules, one of the WACs says that you have to, the applicants are going to be, shall be asked a standard set of questions, and you can ask follow-up questions if necessary to understand the applicant's response to a standard question. So if you're trying to do individual discernment of candidates, everybody has to get the same standard questions to start out with. And then you can ask supplemental questions to understand their answers. So whatever you do just has to fit within those sideboards.
Yeah, the applications have the standard questions and, but there's no way it makes sense to disallow sideboards or discussions because the information that's in the standard questions is the meat for exactly how did you do this or what does this mean?
Right, yeah, if you can't understand, if you have a standard question and someone gives a non-answer, that's just like for lack of a better word, like just because I don't have a better example, if you ask a politician a question and it's a yes or no question, and they say, well, that's interesting because blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't answer the question, so you have to ask further questions to get the answer. So yeah, that's fine.
David, we would never do that.
But yeah, even if we treat this like a check the box kind of question, then we're absolutely abandoning our obligation to do the very best that we can, because these are not check the box. It doesn't say, are you breathing? I mean, that's not argumentative, but other things are.
And I'm not saying every question needs to be yes or no. It can be a more open-ended question about what do you see the role as the Board of Health? And then if they're not sort of answering the question fully, you can ask follow-up questions to further clarify what they think the role of the Board of Health is.
So one of the things we could do if we were to, well, let me first back up. I don't know if I heard you correctly, David. We could spread this out over 2 or 3 days.
I think that's fine as long as if it's a special meeting, you'd have to give the notice requirements under the OPMA, but yeah.
Right, all of that, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe we should do it all in one day, but not necessarily starting exactly at the same time, not have everybody here at
Different times during the day.
yeah, like maybe we do.
And I think that would work. The only thing we have to make sure is everybody's available that day.
Right. So maybe we let the clerk figure out the flexibility that is needed and we'll interview during the week sometime. And the clerk picks.
Can we have that kind of flexibility, David? I know on the deal, we actually put a date down for interviews.
Yeah, I know on the press release, you had a specific day that the interviews were going to be conducted. I think as long as all the people who applied are accommodated for a meeting time, that will work. If you're not going to, because people who applied expected, all right, well, I'm going to be available on this day. So as long as the availability is addressed for the people who interviewed, I don't think there's a problem with that. And then as long as the MA is complied with, otherwise, if you're gonna do more than one meeting and do a special meeting, I think you can do it. So I do think there's enough flexibility to do what you're talking about.
Okay. So I think that'll kind of work with what you were saying, right?
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
main point actually David just handled it. We must accommodate the schedule of the applicant.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Ron.
So are the number or the people that are going to be doing the interviewing clearly defined?
It's the current Board of Health.
And you can't add to any of that. That is the regulation. Okay, and then you make an interesting comment about availability, trying to do the interviews. Well, again, you're asking each of them to make a commitment to time to meetings at a certain time. Board of Health meets certain time. So there is an intuitive expectation that they will make time for the meetings when they come along, and works toward also the interview.
Yeah, one of my biggest concerns I don't think can be addressed, which is I like to treat people as individuals and even during an interview process. And I think we get the cleanest responses if they're not alloyed by the previous responses. I don't think we know how to accommodate that. If we do it on several days, there'll be publications or discussions, or the stuff will be on the internet. Somebody can see if we, because, yeah, enough said.
Okay.
So the current Board of Health, if people's term has expired, they're no longer part of the Board of Health, so they do not participate in the interview process?
No, they're,
It's the remaining members?
I'll let, David, you want to go ahead and answer that?
Yeah, the bylaws say that they're holdover members essentially. So even though the term is expired, they're still a member until they either vacate the office or a new member is appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, following the processes outlined in the RCWs and WECs. So the current 3 non-elected members, even though their terms of office have expired, they're still members of the Board of Health. So at the next meeting of the Board of Health, Kelly Lane would still be the chair conducting the meeting.
Yeah, there's a curious thing that applies here. Let's say at the end of my term, the person who has been reelected for some reason becomes unavailable on January 1st, then I think that the current occupant of the commission stays on until something can be resolved. Is that not true, David?
Yeah, I'm having a lot of noise outside my office. They're doing construction, but I think what you said was if you take office January 1 and then for some reason you vacate the office, what's the process? Is that what you said? Or
Well, no, I was thinking that until we can get a replacement, the current person in the chair continues through.
are you talking about just the chairperson, or are you talking about a member?
He was talking about an elected commissioner.
Elected commissioner on the Board of Health?
It doesn't matter. We can talk about it another time with all the noise.
He's got
Sorry.
construction going on over there.
Can you hear it on your end?
Yep.
So no, I'll mute myself.
Okay, thanks, David. So when the application's closed, I think we'll.
Figure out a time.
Yeah, okay, it sounds like we got a little bit of flexibility there, so.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
We're doing public comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my primary interest is mental health in the county, and I think the last I heard, we had architects studying the juvie center for possible use. Do we have an update on that and what kind of a schedule do we have?
Yeah. I don't know when, I haven't got their renderings back and I'll have to check. I don't know when they expect to get them to us. And then whenever I get those, then it'll be out here in the public because the colleagues will need to see it
Okay,
from that.
okay, thank you.
But I don't have a date for you, Larry.
Okay,
But I can
thanks.
find one. Any others? Okay, seeing none. Thanks for your participation. We will adjourn.